Hello and welcome back to another video. There's a lot going around on Twitter at the minute about Barclays ballers and it is giving me nostalgia. It's feeling so nice. A couple of months ago, I absolutely hated going on Twitter. There was just so much negativity everywhere and I was ready to delete the app. But out of nowhere, out of the heavens, came a trend that I don't think the football community does a lot of trends really, but especially on Twitter, like maybe on TikTok. But this came out of nowhere and it was called Barclays Ballers. It started off with the idea of football fans can go into a room and just list off names of players and it will bring them endless joy. It's nostalgia. This then turned into compilations with the hashtag Barclays Ballers, and there are some absolute nostalgic beauties on here. Like people that I'd kind of forgotten about a little bit, but then you hear the name and all the highlight reels just come flooding back to you. Your childhood comes back. Things aren't so bad. You know, inflation isn't terrible. You ain't got to worry about the bills. You ain't got to worry about what you're doing for work. It's just football. So what I'm doing today is I've got some of the best Premier League Barclays ballers, some of the best streets won't forget players, and I'm going to be ranking them in a tier list. You can let me know if you think I've done a good job or not, but this is based solely off my nostalgia. Everyone's might be a little bit different, but this is what I'm going with. So I think let's get straight into it. There are definitely some players here that have been missed out. So maybe I'll do a round two and I'll update this tier list with more players. If I've missed out a player, let me know. If you want me to do a championship version, again, let me know down in the comments below. And if you enjoy this content, make sure you subscribe. I've got them here in a kind of tier from Streets Won't Forget to Chop Chop Player, you know, that Harry Redknapp, memorable season, what could have been, and then just a pure nostalgia bias. Like they weren't that good. Already, I'm looking at Wigan and I'm thinking there's so many players that aren't even on this list. I don't think Nzogby is on this list. Amir, for me, I would put him, I'm going to put him straight in the memorable season category. Like, again, this is just from my kind of perspective, my kind of nostalgia. The name, he scored goals, and that Wigan team scored goals. They were different gravy. There's a lot of teams that have fallen down the rankings, have ended up in League One, League Two, that were just like, they're the prime Premier League, and I'd give anything to have that back. You know, your Wigans, your Boltons, your Blackburns, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, Amazaki, I'm going to pop you in the middle. Yeah, so like I remember his name a lot. I remember him scoring goals, but I don't remember any of the goals, if that makes sense. So I'm going to pop him down in kind of memorable season era. Next up, we got Hatem Ben Arfa, who arguably is like maybe too good for this list. I don't think he is. He's got to go in Streets Won't Forget for me. Not just actually in real football terms, but he was almost like one of the first like iconic FIFA players you'd want in your ultimate team or like in your career mode, and like the 5-star skiller, the kind of affordable 5-star skiller in your team. But not just that, he was just incredible to watch. There's a couple teams here that are kind of just on repeat, and Newcastle's one of them. Next up, again, this is only the third one in. This will be the best player that's in this list, and he probably is too good for the maybe the Streets Won't Forget category. But in terms of a Barclays baller, Dimitar Berbatov has got to take the crown. I mean, for me, the touch of a pillow, like I think everyone has kind of one player that made them fall in love with football, like as a neutral. And for me, that was Dimitar Berbatov. There was actually a time where I was like, I fucking loved Spurs at one point. And then Blues played Spurs at home. Mikel Forssell, who's my favourite ever football player, scored a hat-trick against Spurs. And I was like, God damn, it was like a sign. Yeah, like he was just unbelievable. Like his ability, his technical ability was just second to none. He was one of them players that was always a joy to watch. Fucking beautiful. Even the trim, man. Like the little, man, I wanted that. Can you imagine me in year 7? I would probably look better than my hair now, to be fair, but unbelievable. Right, moving through a little bit quicker, we have got Yannick Bolasie. I'm actually going to put him in what could have been, because he did have the technique. He had the skill. He could beat a man, but like he was one of them that like you kind of tried to go to the next level and it didn't quite work out. And I agree, a lot of these players, they're not players for top teams, but I think with Bolasie, you almost felt like he could have been. Wilfred, Bony. Again, it's almost what could have been in here, but I think he always kind of had his level. I'm going to put him at memorable season, just because he was in that Swansea team, and it was just an unbelievable team to watch. He made the move to Man City. I think it didn't quite work out for him, but also the iconic anthem that kind of just made it for me was the "Come On, Wilfred Bony." That was almost one of the first real social media announcements that they did. So yeah, I'm going to pop him in memorable season. I'm going to put Demba Ba and Papi Cisse, because I feel like they've got to go together. I'm going to put them in the top player category. I almost feel like Demba Ba could probably make it into the Streets Won't Forget, but I want to have them as a pair. Like, this was just a goated combination. Demba Ba had a lot more memorable moments, but Papis Demba Cisse, when he came in and he just hit that absolute beauty against Chelsea, that no one quite knows if it was a fluke or not, but we're all saying it was definitely like on purpose, was unbelievable. And Demba Ba, obviously, just, you know, the whole Champions League, Gerrard slipping over, that situation, he actually did manage to make that leap to the next level. Yes, he didn't do crazy numbers, but he did the right things. He scored goals and he looked good doing it. Next one is a bit of an older one. Giovanni. It's actually going to be really hard to put these together. I'm going to put Giovanni in memorable season, though. Again, there was that kind of Hull team that went up. I don't know if it was, is his name Phil Brown, who managed them, and they just looked absolutely solid. But Giovanni was kind of the spearhead of that team, and he was always scoring goals. Again, he was one of these that was just the kind of icon, the spearhead, you know, the cult hero of one particular team. Scored a lot of goals, good player. How could we forget, though, Bafétimbi Gomis? The celebration, like, when you're talking about Barclays ballers, when you're talking about Streets Won't Forget, you're talking memorable moments, and who can forget that iconic crawling celebration? It's unbelievable. That was one of the better ones, one of the first ones really that got added to FIFA, where we were like, okay, cool, this is a little bit different. Again, that Swansea team, fucking unreal at one point when it was in the Prem. Like, I don't know if he was in the team when Gary Monk was managing it, but at one point, Gary Monk, and again, Scott Sinclair isn't in here, Gary Monk made a beautiful Swansea team, and they were one of the first ones. Again, you might say this is almost the downfall of that era, of the Barclays baller era. You could say Swansea were actually maybe the first team to start the demise of football, where every team is almost following that tiki-taka passing football. And I think that's before Pep joined the Prem. So everyone's blaming it on Pep. I'm blaming it on Gary Monk. Just look at it. They played possession-based football. They played passing it out from the back, but they did it in style and it looked good. And they did it with a team that was underrated. You know, it was a team that wasn't the best team, but they ground results out. But yeah, I think that Swansea team was absolutely unreal. And speaking of that Swansea team, I'm going to put this guy right in the Streets Won't Forget. It is Michu. If you watched that Swansea team, if you were around, you didn't even have to watch every game or anything. You would know Michu. You would know the goals he scored. Unbelievable. He cost Swansea £2 million, and that might have been just the best bargain ever. I actually don't know what happened to this player, and maybe that's another series of like what happened to these forgotten ballers. But he was spectacular. And like, you're talking about a cult hero for one club. He was a cult hero for the Premier League. Next up, we've got Federico Macheda. I'm actually going to put this guy down in nostalgia bias because he kind of had, it weren't a memorable season. It weren't a what could have been. Maybe it was, but it was more a nostalgia bias. For me, that goal against Villa, absolutely incredible. He burst onto the scene. I'm sounding like Michael Richards here, but he actually burst onto the scene with that goal. The problem is he kind of couldn't keep it up, and you know, I think he found his level eventually. He actually came to my club, Birmingham City, and saved us from relegation with his goals. He always had that ability. So I'll always appreciate him. I'll have the nostalgia bias with him, but it was more of a moment than a kind of Streets Won't Forget kind of player. Next up, I'm only judging this off the photo, but I'm pretty sure this is Manuel Figueroa. And so I'm going to put him in nostalgia bias. Again, the only reason I'm doing this is because he had one moment. So maybe nostalgia bias is the wrong term. But he had that. If you know, you know. You hear the word Figueroa, you know it was that halfway line strike. I don't even know who it was against. But you just saw him. He got it on the halfway line. He kind of looked up, saw the keeper off his line, and just decided to shoot. A player for Wigan, a player no one had really heard of that much. Never really did anything after, but just had that one moment that he could probably sit down now and think, oh, I did that. As I'm going through this, I'm getting names just pop into my head. I just had Carlton Cole pop into my head. There's so many. I need you to get them down in the comments. Who am I missing out, and what tier would you put them in? Let me know. Next up, we got Nico Cranshaw. I'm going to put him in top player. One, because that's Harry Redknapp's phrase. And two, this is Harry Redknapp's, you know, his son that wasn't his son. Nico Crouch, you know, Nico Cranshaw, Jermaine Defoe, Peter Crouch, amongst others, were just Redknapp's golden boys because he knew exactly what he could do with them. He knew how he could set up his team, and Cranshaw was just one of those Streets Won't Forget players. I don't actually know if I remember any real goals or moments from him. I actually don't remember him that much, but I just remember him following Harry Redknapp around everywhere. I mean, I could drop him down, but I don't think it was a memorable season because he had quality wherever he went. I just don't know if he had that many memorable moments, so I'm not going to put him all the way up in Streets Won't Forget. Next up, again, talking about Portsmouth, we've got Papa Bouba Diop, and again, he was... Again, this is probably named incorrectly, but I'm going to put him in the mid category because he was also... Oh, God, nah... He's hard. He probably could go in the top player category. I'll put him in the middle. Yeah, Papa Bouba Diop, rest in peace. He died in 2020, but my God, he had a foot like a traction engine. And I remember being very excited when he came to Blues. He only played a couple of games for us. He did score one goal. I think it was a header. But I was always hoping like for a long shot from him or something because he always scored those kind of goals. But yeah, we were his last club. And rest in peace, Papa Bouba Diop. Next up, we have... Got to put him at the top. It is Dimitri Payet. I mean, you only have to look at his free kick portfolio. His CV for free kicks was unbelievable. But not just that, he was an absolutely skillful, beautiful to watch player. He almost gave me like glimmers of when I used to watch Berbatov, like different player, but in terms of the enjoyment you got from watching him, it was beautiful. And he had that one free kick that seemed to just go like ridiculous curve on it. The geezer had 110 curve. It was ridiculous. 9 to go. Next up, Morten Gamps Pedersen. I'm going to put him in top player. I remember him scoring loads of goals. I don't actually remember any of the specific goals. But yeah, he was the main threat for Blackburn. And he was the cult icon. So yeah, I'm going to put him in top player. This is really tricky now. This is actually getting really tricky. Hugo Rodallega. Now this is one that I do remember his goals. And again, he was part of this Wigan side. It was him and Charles Nzogbia, like, unbelievable. Him and Charles Nzogbia, just, the link-up was unbelievable. They didn't have, like, a green chem link. They had fucking golden one. I'm putting him in Streets Won't Forget. I just think he deserves it. I think sometimes, like, again, he's one of the ones that, for maybe one of the smaller clubs, just... absolute cool icon, never will be forgotten. And speaking of, next up, for different reasons, you have to put Rory Delap in Streets Won't Forget. Like, I'm sorry, but this guy was an icon. He changed the game. He was the opposite of Pep. You know, if you hate this whole Pep, football's gone mad style, then you will think back to Rory Delap and you will just remember it with beauty and passion. And, oh my God, it was amazing. He would just, out of nowhere... For a whole season, teams didn't know how to deal with it, and he just yoinked the ball, and the defenders would have no idea what to do. Every time there was a throw-in, it was like there was a free kick or a corner happening. The defence were fuming. And it was even affecting their in-game play because they were trying not to concede throw-ins, which just throws your whole game plan off. Like, there was one point where instead of letting the ball go for a throw-in, they let it go for a corner just because they knew how to deal with it better. I don't know who the club was or who the player was, but that definitely happened. I swear to God. Rory Delap, you were the last of a memorable breed of absolute Brexit footballers. Next up again, we've got Rocky Santa Cruz, who I'm going to put him in the memorable season category. Again, I don't know if it's a kind of bias, but he made that move to Man City. It never worked for him, but he just had a great season with Blackburn. He made the move to Man City, and it didn't really work out for him, which is just... It's just kind of the way... It sealed his fate as a Streets Won't Forget player, as a Barclays baller, because if he'd have gone on to have an amazing career, probably wouldn't have been quite so good, but... And I know it doesn't work in the rankings so well, but what a season he had for Blackburn. I've got to put a Blues player in here. I just had to. I'm gonna not be too biased here. This isn't what could have been because he reached the level that he was at. Right, it's a memorable season in the Premier League, maybe more. Like obviously he was with us through the Championship, through the Prem, through the Championship, through the Prem. And the reason I've got him in this, if I wasn't a Blues fan, I'd have him in this purely for his goal against Spurs. If you haven't seen it, go on YouTube and look for Seb Larsson's goal against Spurs. It was like 2008 or something. It was Alex McLeish's first game. Imagine it's your first game managing a team. You're like, oh, I'd love to have a win here. And Seb Larsson just... It was the curve. It curved away from the keeper. It was perfect. It was the perfectly struck goal. And it was against that team as well, that Spurs team, man. Obviously, he won the Cup with Blues. He won the League Cup. Like, no, he had more than a memorable season. I'm putting him in top player. He had more than a memorable season because he went to Sunderland and was cracking as well. So he's going up there for me. Another one is John Joe Shelvey. I've put him in here, and I haven't seen him on many lists for Barclays Ballers, but I think you can't have a Barclays Ballers list without John Joe Shelvey. Like, he had a goal in him. He had a screamer in him. Not just that, though. He had the red cards. He had the temperament. He had the skill. He had the bald head. Everything that just made him an icon. It was just... He's different. You know, people would call him incredible. They'd say he's got a foot like a traction engine. He looks like Voldemort. Whatever you want to say about him, he is a Barclays baller. Second to last, I'm going to go Yakubu. Again, this is kind of a bit of a weighted list because I love all of these. But Yakubu is a top player. There's not much more to be said about him. Beautiful, just scary striker that you don't want coming up against you. But finally, and what a name to end on, Adel Taarabt. Adel Taarabt. Championship, Premier League, baller. Highlight reel, masterclass. Everything about this man dripped in sauce. And he epitomises a streets won't forget player because he never really went on to make it to the top. He did kind of reinvigorate his career later on, but he never reached the heights that everyone thought he would reach. He was unplayable on his day. And I mean unplayable. And he's the type of player, and he's the one player that if you're stood in your kitchen and someone says Adel Taarabt, a highlight reel comes on in your head. There's like Kasabian playing in the background and you're off to a better place. You're not worrying about your bills. You're not worrying about the stress. None of that is gone. And all you can see is Adel Taarabt nutmegging, flip-flapping, whatever, scoring screamers, sending the keeper the wrong way on a one-on-one. Like, oh, unbelievable player. Mwah! Beautiful. He's the epitome of streets won't forget. And that's my list. And there's so many that I would have missed. But let me know if you agree with it. If I have missed anyone, let me know down in the comments who I have. And that'll be it for this video. This is a little bit different video to what I usually do, but I'm trying to do more that appeals to more football fans. So if you do appreciate this, if you slap a like on it, if you give it a share, if you subscribe, that would mean a lot to me. And then I can go make more videos like this. So hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. I need to watch some highlight reels now. Come on.